Paul Stamets was born on July the 17th, 1955, in the small town of Salem, Ohio, but it was in nearby Columbiana where his story truly began. Growing up in a close-knit rural community, Paul's childhood was anything but ordinary. He was a quiet, introspective boy, not by choice, but by circumstance. A severe stutter made simple conversations a daunting task, isolating him from his peers and forcing him to retreat into his own world. It was in this solitude that Paul found solace in nature. The forests surrounding his home became his refuge, a place where the judgment of others couldn't follow. With his eyes often cast downward, Paul noticed the intricate and alien forms of mushrooms sprouting from the forest floor. Where others saw decay, Paul saw life, vibrant and mysterious. These unassuming fungi sparked a fascination that would quietly take root in his mind. Paul wasn't entirely alone in his curiosity. His twin brother, North Stamets, shared moments of exploration and discovery with him. Together they wandered the woods, collecting specimens and marveling at the hidden world beneath the canopy. These early adventures sowed the seeds of Paul's lifelong passion for fungi. Yet, at the time, Paul could not have imagined the role mushrooms would play in his life.
And my hat is made from amadou.
Paul Stamets' life changed forever at the age of 18. The setting was a quiet corner of the Midwest, but the moment itself was anything but ordinary. Paul had always been drawn to the mysteries of the natural world, but he had no idea how deeply they would affect him until he encountered psilocybin mushrooms for the first time. It was a day marked by storm clouds, a brewing thunderstorm rolling across the sky. Paul, driven by curiosity and perhaps a longing for transformation, consumed the mushrooms. What followed was an experience that bordered on the mythical. As the storm raged overhead, Paul found himself climbing a towering tree, its branches swaying in the wind. Rain lashed against his face, lightning illuminated the sky, and thunder echoed through the forest like a heartbeat. In that moment, he began to chant over and over, "Stop stuttering, stop stuttering." The words became a rhythm, a mantra, as if he could will his body to break free from the chains that had held him for so long. And then something shifted. It wasn't just the storm outside, it was the storm within him. Paul felt a profound sense of connection to the world around him, a clarity that was as terrifying as it was exhilarating. When the storm finally passed and Paul climbed down, he was changed. For the first time, his speech came more freely. The stutter that had plagued him since childhood was diminished, as though the mushrooms had unlocked something inside him. It was more than just a physical change, it was a revelation. In that moment, Paul realized that fungi were not just organisms, they were keys to understanding something far greater. This singular experience would become the foundation of Paul's life's work. It wasn't just about overcoming a stutter. It was about uncovering the hidden potential of fungi and the ways they could transform not only individuals, but the world itself.
Extremely adverse conditions, hundreds of inches of rain per year, wind, sleet, hail, baking in the sun, and yet is the longest living mushroom that we know today.
Paul Stamets didn't take the conventional path to science. After his transformative experience at 18, he knew he needed to understand fungi at a deeper level, but traditional academia wasn't designed for someone like him. He enrolled at Evergreen State College in Olympia, Washington, a place known for its unorthodox approach to education. Evergreen offered Paul the freedom to carve his own path, and he embraced it with unrelenting curiosity. He immersed himself in self-directed studies, scouring forests for fungal specimens and conducting experiments in makeshift labs. Paul's connection to fungi deepened with every discovery, but not everyone saw the value of his work. Professors and peers questioned the scientific merit of mycology, dismissing it as a fringe field with little practical application. But Paul wasn't deterred. He thrived on the independence that Evergreen allowed him, often venturing into old-growth forests to observe fungi in their natural habitats. These were places untouched by time, where ancient fungal networks wove themselves into the fabric of the ecosystem. Paul saw something that others didn't. Fungi weren't just decomposers, they were architects of life. Without formal training in biology, Paul relied on his intuition and hands-on experimentation. He began to uncover patterns, connections, and possibilities that even seasoned scientists had overlooked. His unorthodox methods and relentless curiosity laid the foundation for what would become groundbreaking work in mycology. Though the scientific community largely ignored him at this stage, Paul knew he was on the cusp of something extraordinary. He was planting seeds, not just in the soil but in the scientific world. Seeds that would eventually grow into a movement. But first, he needed to prove himself. By the late 1970s, Paul Stamets had carved out a path of self-discovery and experimentation, but he realized he needed a platform to bring his passion for fungi to the world. In 1980, he founded Fungi Perfecti, a small, family-owned business dedicated to exploring and promoting the potential of mushrooms. Paul started small, selling mushroom cultivation kits to teach others how to grow fungi at home. The idea was simple but revolutionary: empower people to cultivate mushrooms, not just as food but as tools for health, education, and even environmental restoration. But the early years of Fungi Perfecti were anything but easy. Financial struggles loomed large, and public interest in mushrooms was minimal. For many, the idea of growing mushrooms at home was strange, even laughable. Paul persevered. He traveled to fairs, farmers' markets, and small community events, carrying boxes of mushroom kits and sharing his vision with anyone willing to listen. Fungi Perfecti became more than a business. It became a mission. Paul's relentless determination to educate and inspire others laid the groundwork for a movement that would eventually reach across the globe. But at the time, he was just a man with a vision and the courage to pursue it against all odds. One of Paul's most significant discoveries came in 1995 along the Oregon coast. While exploring the lush, moss-covered terrain, he stumbled upon a mushroom unlike any he had seen before. This was Psilocybe azurescens, a species of psilocybin mushroom remarkable not just for its potency but for its sheer potential. Paul named it after his son, Azurius, cementing a personal connection to one of his most groundbreaking finds. But Paul's work extended far beyond psychedelic mushrooms. He began pioneering a new field, mycoremediation. Using fungi to clean up environmental pollutants, Paul demonstrated that mushrooms were more than just decomposers. They were nature's recyclers. His research showed how fungi could break down oil spills, pesticides, and even toxic industrial waste, offering a glimpse of a future where fungi might save the planet. Then came his work with medicinal mushrooms. Species like turkey tail and agaricon became focal points of Paul's research, revealing their immune-boosting properties and potential as antiviral agents. Clinical studies validated what Paul had long suspected: fungi could heal not just ecosystems, but people too. Through these discoveries, Paul was no longer just a voice in the wilderness. He was becoming a global advocate for fungi's role in science, medicine, and environmental restoration. By the late 2000s, Paul Stamets was no longer just a scientist. He was a storyteller. With a lifetime of discoveries behind him, he knew it wasn't enough to work in the shadows of academia. The world needed to hear his message, and Paul had the courage to step onto the global stage. It wasn't just a presentation, it was a call to arms. The talk went viral, reaching millions of viewers and igniting a movement. Paul didn't stop there. He appeared on platforms like the Joe Rogan Experience, where his passion for fungi reached a younger, broader audience. His charisma and expertise made mycology accessible, turning it from a niche science into a cultural phenomenon. Behind the scenes, Paul collaborated with organizations like NASA, exploring how fungi might one day help humans survive on other planets. As Paul Stamets' star rose, shadows began to creep into his story. Fame brought scrutiny, and with it, challenges that tested his resilience both personally and professionally. At the center of these struggles was his son, Azurius Stamets. Named after a potent psilocybin mushroom species Paul had discovered, Azurius faced a series of legal troubles, including arrests for assault and firearm-related charges. The media attention surrounding Azurius's actions cast a shadow on Paul's reputation, forcing him to navigate the difficult terrain of being both a public figure and a father. Professionally, Paul faced criticism from within the scientific community. Skeptics questioned the efficacy of his mycelium-based supplements, accusing him of exaggerating their benefits for commercial gain. The debate over mycelium versus fruiting bodies grew heated, with some researchers dismissing Paul's claims outright.
I went to conferences, I was treated like a leper, people avoided me.
Through it all, Paul remained steadfast. He defended his work with a combination of scientific studies and personal conviction, refusing to let criticism derail his mission. Paul Stamets' story is one of resilience, discovery, and connection. But perhaps his greatest legacy is the network of lives and ecosystems he has touched, an echo of the mycelial networks he has spent a lifetime studying. As a mentor, Paul has inspired a new generation of mycologists, scientists, and enthusiasts who are carrying his work forward. Today, Paul's influence can be seen everywhere, from the growing acceptance of psilocybin therapy to the integration of mycelium-based materials in sustainable industries. His name is immortalized not just in fungal species, but in popular culture. But Paul's story is far from over. Like the fungi he studies, his work continues to spread, quietly transforming the world in ways most of us have yet to fully understand.